Here's the thing, and this is, I think, is the most important when it comes to being offended. Being offended is a you problem, not a me problem. Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel, Meet Me in the Center. My name is Andrew. There's not going to be any big introduction here, just jumping right back into the Freedom of Speech and Expression series. So here's the video. Enjoy. Okay, freedom of speech, freedom of expression. What is it meant to protect? Freedom of speech and freedom of expression are meant not to protect things that everyone agrees with. So, for instance, if you say something that's obvious, then and you know the vast majority would agree with, you don't need to protect that because it's not something that people are going to attack. It's meant to protect speech that people don't agree with. Speech that's awkward, speech that's offensive, speech that's just naturally disagreeable. And what people seem to be forgetting recently is that if you're protecting that speech, it means that you're protecting the rest of the speech as well. But I hear the argument, and I hear it regularly, unfortunately, and the argument goes something like this: well, but I shouldn't be offended. I should have the right to not be offended. Why should you have that right? That would be my first question. Why should you have that right to not be offended in this world? So I can say something that's totally just completely non-offensive. I like cats. I'll use it as an example. There are billions of people on this planet. Do you not think that one of them can hear that and be like, oh, well, I hate cats and you said that, so I'm offended. Or, well, I'm a dog person and so you must not like dogs, so I'm offended by that. Here's the thing, and this is, I think, is the most important when it comes to being offended. Being offended is a you problem, not a me problem. So I say something, and yeah, maybe I was trying to be offensive, maybe I wasn't. But I say something and then you interpret that. And you then interpret that in a way that offends you. I may not have meant it to offend you. I may not have meant it to be interpreted that way. And the ridiculous argument that people are using now is, well, no matter what you say, you should be able to say it in a way that cannot stop it from being interpreted badly. And that's ridiculous, because I can't control your thought processes. I can't control your brain functioning. I can't do that. I guarantee that anything I say someone can find offensive. And so I can't say anything? That's what they want, essentially. That's what they're aiming for. That's the end goal, is that I have to just shut up and can't say anything. So when I've debated people about free speech and how important it actually is in today's modern age, they'll bring up that, well, if someone gets offended by your words, that's your problem, whole shtick that they use, and how they want me to be able to control everyone's thinking to not offend them. And so I'm like, So I ask them to say something, and I point out all the ways I could be offended from them saying that when I'm debating them. And so going forward, what I'll do, just sometimes to annoy them more than anything else, it depends how nice they are. It depends if they're using cheap tactics themselves, stuff like that in the debate. But like, I'll be like, they'll say something and I'll be like, oh, that's offensive, you can't say that. Just to point out, and I'll even go into why I found it offensive, even though I don't actually find what they're saying generally offensive. They'll say something like, well, I think that, for instance, racist people should not be allowed to say racist things. I mean, you can fall in whatever category you want for that, but what I'll generally do is I'll be like, oh, I found that offensive. Well, a lot of people think white people are racist, and so a lot of people that's just saying that white people can't say anything. You know, I'll twist it a little bit like that, just to show them that no matter what they say, it can also be offensive, because that's the point. People only find things offensive that they disagree with, interestingly. Well, maybe not interestingly. It makes perfect sense, right? Because why would you be offended if you agree with it? But there are multiple people on the other side that will find it offensive because they disagree with it, even if you and your group agree with it. So if no one can be offended in the world, no one can open their mouth in the world. That's the issue that I have with it. Oh, and incidentally, to this whole movement that, oh, whoever's the most offended is the most right, offended and right or offended and correct are not synonyms. They're two completely different things. You can be as offended as you want. It doesn't mean that you're right on anything. And by the way, most of the things that you want to be right on are opinions, and as I've covered before on this channel, you can't be right or wrong when you have an opinion. An opinion is just an opinion. So I don't know. I also hate this movement towards if you hate something, oh, then it's automatically hate speech. Tom MacDonald has the best quote in one of his songs about this. I know, and it's there's a difference between hate speech and speech that you hate, and he hits the nail right on the head. If someone does not like something that they're hearing, all of a sudden it's targeting them, even if it wasn't directed at them at all. It's targeting them, and so, you know, that's hate speech, and they're offended, and you can't say it anymore. So that's the type of speech that needs protecting. Is the one that people don't agree with, the one that might be offensive, whether it's meant to be offensive or not. And by the way, as a general rule, I try not to be offensive. I try to be, you know, as nice as I can. I try to be as positive as I can. However, I am fully aware that no matter what I say, again, it can be twisted to whatever someone else wants to twist it as. Goodness knows I had enough arguments with my ex where I said something and she took deep offense to it, even though in her mind what I was saying and what I actually said were two very extreme different things. So, you know, anyone can do it to anyone. So one example from history that I think is very, very important about all this, of what speech needs to be protected, is the story about the ACLU in 1977. So the ACLU in 1977 decided that they wanted to fight for a Nazi group in the U.S. To be able to protest and march in a city. Basically, the city had blocked them from being able to do this. It is their right under free speech, as long as it's peaceful, under your First Amendment, for them to do it. But the city had been blocking them. In the city, there were a lot of veterans at the time that had fought in World War II, and they would have found it very offensive. Now, the reason I use this example is not because I'm a Nazi, not because I approve of what the Nazis did or anything like that. I am completely against Nazis. Fuck the Nazis. But I use it as an example of why it's important that everyone's rights are protected, not just some people's rights. So incidentally, I think it's always awkward when we're talking about Nazis, obviously, but do I agree with what they're saying, what they were saying at the time? No. Was it a little tone deaf or intentionally tone deaf that they wanted to do that march in that city with such a high number of veterans who fought in World War II. Sure, but they should still have that right because it's protected. And there was a lawyer who took the case in the ACLU. His name is David Goldberger, and he's a Jewish lawyer. And he took this case. And why did he take it? Because he could have very easily said, well, these people, look at what these people did to the Jews. They don't deserve any rights. They should burn in hell. He took the case because he realized that if you protect their rights, you are strengthening everyone else's at the same time. I guarantee he did not agree with them marching or their message or anything like that, but it was important to protect everyone's, and the way to protect everyone's is to protect the rights of different groups when they are being chipped away. Because if they chip away for one person, they chip away for all. It's not like, I think there's this idea now that, well, I'm a good person, so they won't take my rights away, but they can take your rights away because you're not as good. Well, first of all, you're the one determining who's good and bad, but the government will do that in the end, and no matter what, they're going to take all the rights away they can. So you won't have your rights either. If they take from one, they take from all. Like, once a right is lost, it's lost. One person doesn't have it, and another does. So interestingly enough, actually, the lawyer, Mr. Goldberger, was at a luncheon. They were doing a luncheon for him for all of his years of service recently, and multiple ACLU staff and lawyers got up and essentially made speeches to the person that defended Nazis about how certain groups should not be protected anymore, how the ACLU should not protect certain groups, generally the far right extremists like neo-Nazis and stuff like that. And he talked to the media afterwards, and I've got the quote from that. So he said, and I quote, "I got the sense it was more important for ACLU staff to identify with clients and progressive causes than to stand on principle." And he also continued, quote, "Liberals are leaving the First Amendment behind." And that's unfortunately very, very true. And that's actually a very bad thing that's happening. Yeah, so what worries me about all of this movement towards some deserve it and some don't is that people are really blind. I don't think they've had so many freedoms for so many years that I don't think that they realize that once they're gone, they never get them back. So I think that is unfortunately the danger. Hey everyone, so I hope you enjoyed that section of my freedom of speech and expression video. There will be more to come. If you did like it, hit the like button, comment on what you thought, and think about subscribing if you want. If not, that's totally up to you. Until the next one, stay tuned. Bye-bye for now.